Hello everybody, I'm Antonia and this is Noel and we are from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company and this is another Boxtail Scoop. So this week we, as promised I think, last week we said we would be working on, well I would be working on the puppet bodies this week and that is what I have been doing. So we showed you the squirrel, prototype squirrel body before, I believe.
Yes, we did, yeah. Next up was the first one you made, wasn't it?
Yes, and so I've been carrying on in the same vein using just recycling. So these are all made of old sheets and I think the robin's breast is a pair of pyjama bottoms that I ended up ripping up because they had a hole in. Just to try and get an idea of the shape. And then with the bodies for the birds, it's been a question of trying to work out how, if we can, make their wings flap. So it's been an interesting week. Not without difficulty, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, there have been a few challenges, haven't there? And the thing is with these bodies, because it's one of those situations where we hadn't made anything like them before.
No.
And because they're made of fabric, the only way to do it really was to make a complete prototype and make the whole thing, in an effort to find any problems and solve them before we come to using the real fabric and making the real thing.
Yes, exactly. I don't want to make mistakes in expensive fabric. So the first one I moved on to, having done the squirrel, was the rabbit, because I knew that basically the rabbit was going to be a scaled up version of the same thing. So, oh sorry.
Well, actually, I was just going to pick up the squirrel for a second, just to kind of illustrate what the first one was that you put together.
Guys out of the way.
Sure. Their heads obviously aren't attached yet, so forgive us if their heads sort of float above their bodies a little bit. I suppose actually, because they're little white versions, they could play their own ghosts if we ever wanted to. But yeah, so that was the squirrel body that we briefly showed you before.
The idea being that the feet kind of drop down like that, and the little arms can be used. There's also space on the back here where the body kicks out a little bit at the butt so that I can put a tail on. I haven't done prototype tails yet, which I probably will move on to later today just to make sure. With a squirrel, it's going to be a case of making sure that it doesn't get in the way.
Yes.
Because obviously you're holding the head at that point there, so if you've got a squirrel tail, it could easily get in the way. So I just got to work that out.
Sure.
So yes, that was the squirrel.
So shall I swap these over?
Yeah.
Bring the rabbit in there.
So the rabbit, as you can see, is basically just a larger version of the same body. And the legs, I haven't sewn everything together because it just takes too long and we just needed to get an idea. So the legs are just pinned at the moment, but when they're actually sewn, I'll try and make sure that they hug the body a little bit better. But I think he works quite well. We're quite pleased with the size. We decided you can't really go any bigger than this. It would look a little odd. And again, if you just move the head, I'm gonna just show you that one drops too much, I think, at the moment. This one drops about the right amount. And that's just a question of being very precise about where I stitch the foot to the leg. And this one, I was experimenting really. So this one's just at slightly the wrong point, which is why it drops a little too far. But basically, and the same thing again, it kicks out a bit there at the butt so that I can put a nice pom-pom tail on the back of.
And I think we said before, the important thing about these was, rather than having their legs fully extend or anything, was that they look good when they're sitting because they spend most of their time sitting, talking and narrating. And then they've got that nice movement in the feet so that if they do have to jump somewhere,
just do a little bounce.
Yeah, you can move them from one spot to another. But their principal job isn't to be walking around all the time. It's mostly sitting and talking or narrating or stuff like that.
So that was the rabbit. If we move, actually you probably put him on the floor.
Yeah, shall I pop those down on the side here?
Got loads of room.
Sure.
And then we moved on to the birds. And the first one I had to go at was the robin. So this is the little robin's body. So we wanted it's similar, I suppose, similarly to the rabbit and the squirrel. When the robin flies, we wanted its little feet to kind of dangle down because it was a movement that we liked on the papier-mâché version of the body that we did. Yeah. So we wanted to make sure we tried to keep that.
Yeah, you want them to sort of float in the air and then land on something.
And then sort of satisfying them when they pop down. And also, again, if he needs to do a little hop, it just makes that movement look a little bit more natural, a little bit more purposeful.
Yeah.
So then we've got, at the back, we've rigged Obviously we wouldn't do it like this in contrasting ribbon. We would disguise the ribbon within the colour of the body in the end, but actually it was quite useful for us to be able to see exactly what we'd done. So we've made this sort of rigging here with some ribbon going underneath a couple of loops to guide the ribbons into the right position when they then go up. And so this creates a nice flapping movement. So from the front then, if you're holding the head, you should, with the other hand, it will be easier with the head on it, but you should be able to then flap the wings.
I love the way the little feet wiggle as well.
I mean, what's quite sweet in that sense is, and we can't really show you with the head on because this in fact was done as a experiment before we put the loops on the back of the body, but we can certainly hover the head. So I don't think it will fit, I think it'll be too short. So. But we can hover the head over, you can see what he looks like. So he's pretty cute. And then the idea is that the wing could also be used to gesture a little bit as a hand. And then when he stands up, you look, you know, you can let it's sort of sweet, so he kind of does that.
Very sweet, I think.
So we're pleased with that, and we were pleased with the movement of the wing there. It's going to be interesting later when we attach the heads properly, whether it still works all right. We tried to experiment quite a lot before. We think it's going to work, don't we? But we'll see what happens. So that was the robin. Yeah. And then the owl, this is the owl. So similar idea with the feet dangling again, slightly different shape, obviously different shape body for the owl. And then we've got a different mechanism going on here for these wings, because what we decided was actually we want them to be a bit more able to kind of steer and swoop a little bit more.
It's really nice that you can get that kind of, you can drop one wing and then the other.
Just hold that.
Yeah, there. Sure.
So you can see the
way that you've got that in the back now.
The owl there. If I pick it up, maybe you can pick the wing, I don't know.
Yeah.
So you could get a sort of sense of how that might work.
Yeah. It will probably tilt the body back slightly more. But... yeah.
Difficult to show you.
But you get the idea, right?
You get the idea. And I mean, yeah, hopefully again, when we actually attach, we've only just put these on the backs of the heads, which are what the ribbon hangs around. You'll have seen that before when we showed you for both Christmas Carol and the new Alice puppets. So we'll have it again, we'll have an experiment later. And
it'll be the next stage today, really, probably, once we finish this vlog.
And for this wing, it's worth saying that we had to put cardboard into the wing itself here because they're so much bigger than the robin's wings. Just the stuffing wasn't good enough, it's bent at the wrong point. So we've had to put a piece of flexible, so it's pizza box card, flexible card in there, just to keep them stable when they come up like that.
Yeah, and to make sure that they bend consistently, as in they hinge consistently in the same place. Because what was happening, in fact, was it was just collapsing.
It was kind of crushing.
So it wasn't predictable how the wing was going to move.
No, they were kind of doing a weird...
And obviously that's no good.
Yeah, sticky chest out thing.
But I think that looks cool. That looks lovely.
Yeah, so that's the owl. And then the last one we made was the magpie, and we had a bit of a fight with this one.
I think, you
had a
very tough
afternoon trying to work the magpie out. Again, you can see we've got the same idea with the feet, slightly different shape body. Wanted to make it sort of more tall and thin, slightly different shaped wing, which in fact I've kind of textured by quilting it almost. And now it does a really nice flap. But that took quite a long time. Let's just show you with the head on as well. Do you want to hold that?
Yeah, sure.
That doesn't quite stand. But he's quite nice, and then he should... I can't really show you, sorry, it's a bit tricky. You could get... Sorry, I can't show you very well, but anyway, you get the idea. This is... And we think with this one, in fact, that you might have to hook the ribbon of the wing over your hand before you put it in the head, so that then, there we go, and I can show you. You can sort of see what that does. So, and we're pleased with him now.
Yeah, so you went through a couple of different body shapes, didn't you?
Yeah, so this I started with this shape, which is not dissimilar, but it kicks out of the stomach, rather than we then decided it needed to be bulkier at the chest. And I had to sort of slightly slope the shoulder down. It just wasn't working. We spent ages, and with a slightly different shaped wing as well, attaching it to various points on this body, and it just wasn't working. It wouldn't flap. It just kind of bent in the wrong places, or was going right out backwards, wasn't it, at one point?
Yeah, and I mean, the difficulty with making them in fabric like this, in that sense, is that it isn't quite so predictable as having two solid bits of foam board or of card or something. There are a lot of benefits, but I suppose you can't risk, especially when you're making a prototype, you want to be able to replicate what you're doing then when you're making the real thing, and be sure that it will work in the same way.
And I am still nervous about that, to be honest, because I think there are quite a few variables. It's happened to me before when I was making the little mini fabric puppet for Gulliver, which is technically the same idea as the puppet that we made for the music video that we showed you, the one with the little black tufty bit of hair like that. And technically they're the same idea, but for some reason the legs wouldn't work properly.
Yeah, I mean, we changed the scale slightly, and you can never be quite sure. And change the fabric, and just those little things make a difference to how easily something bends, what the resistance is like, how much weight it takes to make something move.
So the fabric that I'm going to be building the puppets in, that we showed you last week, is quite a close weave fabric, which is the same. It's very similar to this particular sheet that I was using, so I'm hoping that it will be the same, because it's got the same sort of slightly stiff quality and it's not got much stretch, whereas another sheet that I was using had a tiny bit of give in it, which makes a difference. But I thought I'd just very quickly show you that because obviously these haven't been made before, they're our design, and therefore I have to make a pattern for each one. So I just cut them out of tracing paper or paper, so that's the back. Then there'll be two pieces for the front of the Magpie that will be cut, obviously that one and then that way for that side. And then two of those for the wing stitched together, and two of those for each foot stitched together. And they work. I mean, I never used to do that, in fact, when it wasn't very good when I made the Wind in the Willows puppets, which were the first fabric puppets I made. I sort of just had a go and hoped that it would work. But this time I needed to know that I could replicate it, so I made sure that I made really comprehensive patterns. For the robin it's a bit different, because although it's got the same idea for the back, the front, because it has an inlay here for the red breast, I had to then make, for the front, it's this piece attached to this piece, which you have to attach right side to right side and then turn it. It's quite complicated actually. But it worked out nicely, and I'm really pleased that what I had in my head worked actually on the actual thing. Watching lots of episodes of The Sewing Bee has definitely helped me. And then, yeah, there's the wing and the foot. And then each of the feet for them have a cardboard insert to keep the foot stiffer and solid. So that's just to give you an idea really of how I've been doing them. And so I have one of these pattern groups of patterning for each puppet.
So looking great, I think. The movement on them now is lovely, now that we're over the difficulties.
Yeah.
And like we said, I think the next thing is to quickly test with the ribbon to connect the heads.
Yes, and how that affects it, because obviously they're going to swing off that ribbon, and how that then, if that destabilises the body so much that the wings then don't flap so well, which might happen, or hopefully that doesn't happen. We'll just have to see what happens,
And then once you've done that, you're ready then to move on to
make them. Yes, if they work, then I'll go on to the proper ones.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
So I think that's about it really, for this week. So thank you very much for watching. As ever, if you've enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, possibly even subscribe. And I think next time we're going to have a look at the set that I've been cutting away, kneeling on the floor for hours and cutting out foam board for. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks.